I am very, very excited as I have rectified the chart of Ron DeSantis. And even better, I'm happy with it. So I had pretty limited information about him, but there were a few significant life events that I was able to use. From my enthusiasm, this has been very, very difficult, as you may be able to tell. Of course, I can't guarantee that it's the time that is absolutely correct, but I'm gonna run with it. Don't forget that if you want a reading with me, you can book an appointment at moonmindology.com, and it's also in the description. Ron DeSantis, I have him as a Virgo ascendant, right between Pluto and Rahu. What a combination. I have done quite a bit of research on him, and people have said he's not the nicest of people, but he really is a go-getter. And his father said he must have thrown 1,000 swings, but Ron DeSantis only ever took at the swing at the ball 5 times. So that says to me, he never strikes without knowing he can hit the target. I get the overall feeling that he is pretty cold and a calculated guy who produces results. Rahu on the Lagna gives a life of fate. So whatever he tries to do, he will always be pushed in the direction of his destiny. He can't escape it. And this is someone who does like material things as well as success. With Pluto here, it's off the charts. He is very intense and very powerful, and people will tend to either love him or to hate him. And there is a tendency towards being utterly obnoxious. But he knows how power works, and he can easily manipulate and bend things to his will. And I think that really does match up with the character reviews of him and how he puts himself across. And if you look at the pictures of him, he is always doing a very smug smile. So when I saw Pluto near his ascendant, a light bulb illuminated above my head, as this is very much, I know I have all the power. His chart ruler is in the 12th house, which is going to be one of the most important parts of his life. And the 12th house is a bit of a funny placement, as it is involved in charity work, but also I've seen a military connection too. And he was in the US Navy and served in the Iraq War and achieved the rank of a lieutenant commander. The ruler of the first is in the 12th. He loves his privacy, so if he Googles himself and finds this, he probably won't be too happy, especially if I have the time right. So he is the kind of person who needs time to plan, to think and process in private, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does meditate or he practices yoga with this placement. He may have been quite shy as a youngster, but he is a reserved person. He does need his time to go away from the limelight. That's further backed up by the fact that I can barely find any public information about him. Mercury being in the 12th gives him great interest in donating to charities and supporting causes. And there is an interest in foreigners, travel and things that are out of this world. Interestingly, he is renowned for being one of the least wealthy politicians. And with a lot of planets in the 12th, this can be a proneness towards debt and a difficulty in holding on to wealth. But the sun is also here in its own sign, which really helps with the ability to retain money. So he may actually be quite spiritual, or his father may be spiritual or even aloof. There is also great introspection and an interest in history. So like we saw with Putin, this is the kind of guy who, if he got into power, he would be dragging up historical agreements, and he is interested in the history of the country. And on that basis, I think that he would probably do a great job at protecting the amendments of the USA. Saturn is also here, which can sometimes indicate that people can work in prisons. And where did he work for a while? Guantanamo Bay, one of the most famous prisons in the world. Saturn rules the 5th and the 6th, the Sun rules the 12th, and Mercury rules the 1st and 10th. We have a Raja Yoga and a Yoga Karaka and an Arista Yoga and also a Viparita Yoga, all in one house. So there's a detachment from the real world at times, that he can be somewhat accident prone. And there can be problems with fellow workers, but good things come out of bad situations. And the 10th ruler is in the 12th, is all about working in big institutions, which he always has. He's worked in the military and the government, and those are very, very obvious examples of the 12th house things. He could also be spiritual, but there does seem to be a disconnect from the physical world. He could have undoubtedly seen some terrible things in Gitmo, but he is said to have not even blinked at what he saw there. This 12th house stellium, with so much going on here, could be part of that disconnect. Saturn has an aspect to Venus which can really dampen his softer emotions, so he has an incredible ability to guard his feelings and what is inside of him. There are parts of this man that very few people know about. He can detach himself from his emotions, which would always be useful in a place such as Guantanamo Bay. Venus is in its own sign in Libra and in the 2nd house, which is a great combination for wealth. This is also good for early life. Making money is important to him. Venus also rules the 9th house, and it is so strong that it's actually a sign for truthfulness and popularity. So even if Mars is there, it's overpowered by Venus. So he can have a more cutting and stabbing effect with his word, but outside of, lying by omission, I think he's quite honest. Venus is conjunct Mars, as I said, which can give an unquenchable passion, but it also creates somebody who is incredibly ambitious. Mars in the 2nd can give a cutting tongue, which we've come to expect. And, it can sometimes be issues with holding on to money, but I can't quite figure out where the money's going. It could be charity. I can't figure that out. Mars rules the 3rd and the 8th, so there is some income from communications, writing, teaching and travelling, but there's also money through others, through banking or insurances. This is a sign that there are problems with siblings. Uranus is in the 2nd and can sometimes cause upheaval in the home life, but he may be a great storyteller. So Uranus conjunct Venus, it's very important that there is emotional freedom, and there could be an attraction to people with technology or people that change a lot. Neptune is in the 3rd, which gives a great creativity with the hands as well as an unusual communication style. So there may have been confusing relationship with his siblings, and there could have been addiction problems as well. He's very intuitive. The moon is in the 5th, which gives great intelligence and common sense. So children are very important to him, and there can be great benefits from his mother and from women in general. The 5th house is also about speculation, so he will be good at gambling, calculated risks, and making overall good decisions. The ruler of the 11th in the 5th is very humanitarian, but it's also very political. The mutual aspect between Jupiter and the moon, as well as the moon being very bright, this is great for strength of the moon and thus his emotional control and his intelligence. He is so intelligent. It's off the charts. The moon is in Dhanishta, which can be linked to a musical ability, and this goes very well with the 3rd house Neptune. So he may be interested in music, or he may literally play the drums. I don't know. Dhanishta is also about money and recognition, which is something he is 100% out for. The drum is an empty vessel, and people who have this nakshatra can find that they're always looking for something to fill that void, and unfortunately that is another sign that there can be problems with marriage and sometimes infidelity. Jupiter is exalted in the 11th house, and this is excellent judgment and morals. He's incredibly lucky, and people will be interested in his advice as well as giving him opportunities. There can be passive income with ease and opportunities through friends and associates. Again, he supports charity, and he is interested in philanthropy, and he's great with gambling, speculation, and undoubtedly he would have travelled all over the world. The only negative side of this aspect is from Ketu, but there is also an aspect from the moon. Jupiter rules the 4th and the 7th, which shows that there can be benefits from his mother, friends, social events, and there can be a real connecting tie for him and his wife. And I managed to find out where they met. They met on a driving range, and that's a very social place. Ketu is in the 7th house, and this can be a sign of problems in relationship, but it can also be a very spiritual partner. Considering that the pair are so private, I'm not sure what this might be. She does come across as incredibly sensitive, but she certainly doesn't seem to be lacking in esteem or confidence, as she is a journalist. But this is the only bit that I am not really totally sure about, and there could be some addictions or deceptions with that aspect. Now, here is the fun bit. Predictions! So he's currently in Saturn Mercury in the 12th house. And we know how strong that 12th house is. So there can be secrets and the like. But Mercury rules his 1st and 10th, which activates his Pluto and his Rahu, which is why he's so popular. And he has come to the forefront. At the end of the year, in October, he will move to Saturn Ketu cycle, and that's the 1st and the 7th axes, and this will be activated, and Ketu will be in his 1st house. So this could be very, very interesting. You can look at it and think, well, Ketu is loss and fire, so there'll be a loss of reputation and power, and it goes over his Pluto and Rahu. However, this actually could be quite good for him. So on inauguration day, he will be having a nodal inversion, and this can sometimes be a time of change. The transiting sun will be directly opposite Jupiter, which is very interesting, and also the moon will be on his Mars. Saturn will be opposed his sun, and Saturn and the sun are the dashas he will be in at the time. On that day, Pluto will also be opposing his Jupiter, which is in the 11th house. So he could find that he is in a position where he may come to power. But of course, if there's somebody else who in the meantime who does join the race and has a better chart on inauguration day than he does, then he may not win. But only time will tell. I hope you've enjoyed my reading today, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much. Bye.